Since we have a limited time, Tuja, I think we can start. Let me introduce you. Good morning, all. Welcome to Shell webinar series. I am Venkatesh Mude, part of Shell team, and your host for the day. We are a CTF team and cybersecurity enthusiast of VNIT. We will be having a series of webinars in the upcoming month. Today, we have with us Mr. Kulkarni. I welcome him on the behalf of all of us. Mr. Kulkarni is a security analyst at TCS and chapter leader at OS Nagpur. You can ask all your questions in the chat and it will be answered after the session. Also, I request you to keep your mic mute during the session. Now, I request Tushar to take it over and start the session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Venkatesh. Let me share my screen. Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Okay. So, hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, getting started with web hacking and bug bounty. So, our today's agenda of this webinar is what is web hacking exactly? What is bug bounty hunting? Why is everyone doing it? What are the common approaches that everyone follows? What are the common bugs that we come across in bug bounty? What are some tools that can be used? And we'll be seeing some demos. Okay. So before we start, quick introduction about myself. I'm a security analyst at Tata Consultancy Services. I mostly my most of the work revolves around web application security testing and network security testing. I also play CTS independently actually. So there are several CTFs that I've been a part of. I also develop web applications in my free time. Also do some bug bounty hunting sometimes. I also lead the OWASP Nagpur chapter, which promotes the application security among the members and the world. Okay, we'll be seeing about OWASP briefly in some time. Okay, so before we start, I'd like to uh, tell something. Venkatesh, there's a echo in my voice actually.
Yes, we are having a echo.
Wait, wait. Hello. Okay.
Yes, sir,
Now
we
it's
can
better,
hear
I guess.
you.
Okay. So before we start, there's this quote called "Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man how to catch fish and you feed him for a lifetime." But there's this one line that if you tell the man to explore how the fish got caught, he will become a master. So the application security or web hacking or bug bounty, it's like that only. You have to explore yourself why the bug occurs or why this particular security flaw occurred. Okay, so this way you get to know better how the bug why the bug was there. You don't only need to just learn it or hack an application. You also should be knowing why the bug was occurring or why it happened that. Okay.
Hello, sir, are you speaking? Because we can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Did I cover this part or not?
Yes, you did cover it.
Okay. Okay. So what web hacking is exactly? It is process of assessing security of a application or a website. It can also be scanning the same web application for vulnerability, maybe using some scanners or manually. We can also escalate privileges from a normal user to an admin user. That can also be web hacking. So that is pretty much about web hacking. We'll see what bug bounty hunting is. So it involves web hacking plus a responsible disclosure. So what a responsible disclosure is? It's the process. It's a choice that one of the choices that you follow after you have found a
అమ్మ
flaw.
నేను క్లాస్లో ఉన్నా క్లాస్
Uh, can I
So
request, excuse me, sir,
క్లాస్
just a minute. Can I request all the participants to please mute yourself so we can continue without any disturbance? Thank you. You can proceed.
okay, so what responsible disclosure is? It's one of the choices you do after you have found a vulnerability. Say you have found a bug in a website. Say you have found a bug on a Twitter. We saw yesterday, a day or before two. So we saw a lot of Twitter accounts were breached. So what the thing that the person did or whoever did that, he did not responsibly disclose the vulnerability. So that's the other choice. That's a black hat thing. You must have seen black hat, white hat categorization of hackers or whatnot. So these are the two choices that generally a pen tester or a hacker follows. So one is responsible disclosure, and the other one is using it for his benefit. So that's a black hat thing. So in bug bounty hunting, generally, what we see is responsible disclosure. After you have found a vulnerability or a bug in an application, a security bug, you report to the responsible party that this is a bug that I have found. You can patch it, or here's how you can patch it. So responsible disclosure generally involves I mean, it is done through a report. So you give a report to a company stating what is the title of the bug, what is the summary, what is the impact, what impact can be caused. Also, it is accommodated along with CWE, OWASP top 10 categorization, and along with the CVSS score. So what exactly these three are? So CWE is a categorization of a vulnerability, which its full form is common weakness and enumeration. So it can be a two-digit number, three-digit number. You can check on the CWA website. So how a vulnerability is categorized. We'll look at OWASP top 10 in some of the further slides, and there's also a CVSS score. So CVSS score tells about the impact of the bug. So we'll see that as well after this. Okay. So why is everyone doing bug bounty? The answer is certainly money. So it's an easy money thing. You just find a bug and you get $50, $100, $500 awarded. So you find a bug, you report it through crowdsourced platforms such as HackerOne, BugCrowd. You get rewarded. So that's a easy money, or people do it as a side job, something like that. Some people do it full time. So yeah, money is one of the biggest contribution to why is everyone doing it. It is also done for fame, recognition, a better portfolio that you can create for your job, or research or fun. So that is all about why is everyone doing it. We'll look at what are the common approaches. So there's recon, identify, exploit, analysis, and report. So what recon is reconnaissance, which is gathering information before trying to identify vulnerability. So we'll look at some tools in the further slide. So I'll just give an idea about what recon is. Reconnaissance is generally gathering all the information before approaching the target. Say create an attack surface or something like that. So generally, recon involves finding subdomains or say getting IP, getting all the information about the target. So that's what recon is. Then is the identify. You identify what the application is made of. Say it's a web application. You try to identify what are the technologies used, say PHP or maybe some JS libraries or any framework that you can know of. So that's the identify part. In the exploit part, you can use both the knowledge you get from recon and identifying the frameworks and the application. In the exploit part, you find about bugs that can possibly occur in the web application. So you find an old framework. You find a web application, you recon it, you find the subdomain, say it's a abc.com. You did a reconnaissance, you find x.abc.com, and you found out that x.abc.com uses an old framework of PHP. So what you do is you search for known vulnerabilities in Google about that old framework. So you come across a remote code execution vulnerability, which you can try. So you try to exploit it, but you generally don't exploit it badly. So say it's a remote code execution. So you just try basic commands such as ls or say cat etc password, something like that. So that's what exploit part is. And then you analyze what are the components that are affected. Is it only the x.abc.com or is it the whole application, or it can cause problems with the other domains as well? So that's the analysis part. And when you do all this part, you clam up it in the report and you present it in a nice way and you send it to the responsible party. So this whole process is what a responsible disclosure, or uh, this is also involved in bug bounty. So along with these approaches, a common thing that all the bug hunters follow is they have their specific tools. I mean, some have their own developed tools, some have a list of tools that they use. So there are alternative. There are a lot of tools which are available, but bug bounty hunters generally keeps their tools specific to like some single tool or something like that. So they also have checklists. You generally, if you get an application to test, you go for it. You find a file upload functionality. So in your checklist, you have a bug, say arbitrary file upload. So you change the uh, while uploading a file, you change the extension name from say JPG to PHP, and if you are able to upload it, it's an arbitrary file upload vulnerability. So these are the checklists that are generally kept with yourself. You can just go through it when you come across any target. Also, there are scanners. We'll see about it for some time. Okay. So this is a very crucial part about application security or web hacking or bug bounty hunting. This is OWASP Top 10 2017. So what OWASP is, let me tell you. OWASP stands for Open Web Application Security Project. It's a non-profit organization, worldwide non-profit organization which strives to promote application security. So it has a lot of chapters worldwide. Nagpur is one of them. I lead the Nagpur chapter. OWASP also publishes tools which are free and open source. So OWASP has a lot of tools, say Zap or uh, Directive Buster or something like that. So it has a lot of tools that can be used in the security domain to test for vulnerabilities, to aid the security testing process. So it publishes a lot of tools. Also, it has a lot of documentation projects. So OWASP Top 10 2017 is one of the documentation projects that is by OWASP. It is community contributed. Like it's open source, so a lot of people have contributed to this top 10 list. These are the top 10 occurring bugs that were found in the 2000. I mean, from the data of 2013 to 17. So they publish this list generally after every 2 3 years. So this is the 2017. It's the latest. Maybe they'll publish a new one in 2020. So these are the top 10 bugs. So first we see is injection. Injection generally comprises. So it's just a categorization and not the severity. Okay. So injection can be an HTML injection, or it can be an SQL injection or command injection or whatnot. So that is pretty much about injection. So if you come across any SQL injection vulnerability, you can categorize it in A1, OWASP A1 injection. Then broken authentication generally comprises of weak password policies or a web application that allows credential stuffing. So if you get a list of username and password and you run a brute force attack or like that against a web application, and it is allowing you or telling you every time that this password is not right, this password is wrong, this password is right, but it is not restricting your number of requests that you are sending. So it's a kind of a broken authentication form. The third one is sensitive data exposure. So you pretty much know about what sensitive data is. Sensitive data, if it is exposed somewhere, maybe through a response or through a directory. So it's sensitive data exposure. XML external entities is generally related to XML parser. So it's a bug that is caused when external DTDs are allowed, or if a web application is using an old XML parser. So you must have seen sometimes that when you are sending requests, the format is in XML. So if the XML parser is a very old one, there's a chance that it has a XXC bug and it can cause a lot of. The fifth one is broken access control, which is also called these days as IDOR, that is insecure direct object reference. What it is the best example to explain the broken access control bug is that say you are an user, uh, say there's a e-commerce website, you went there, you sign in, you add an address, you add a credit card for yourself. Now when again you go to that page, you intercept the request, you see your user ID as 728. Now if you change the user ID before sending the request from 728 to 799, and if you are able to see that person's address or credit card details or like that, so generally like you are breaking the access control system, you are seeing what you should not see. So that is pretty much about broken access control, that you just change the user ID or some parameters from the front end, and the server, you're just fooling the server that this is this is the other person. So that is broken access control. Security misconfigurations are a lot of I mean it comes, yeah, it occurs a lot of in lot of applications. So it's just if a directory listing is allowed, or server misconfiguration, it can come in a lot of ways. So what cross-site scripting is, a lot of people might be knowing this, or this is a pretty common bug. So if a application say Google, so it has a search bar, right? If you enter something, it reflects it there. So if you try and enter an H1 tag and type something, and if you search, the H1 gets reflected, but it also gets rendered in the browser. So that's pretty much an HTML injection. So because the tag was rendered in browser, so that way you can inject script tag as well, and you can inject malicious JavaScript code into the application and thus send it to the victim. So this is a client side vulnerability, but it has a pretty good impact. Then in deserialization, is same, kind of same as XML and external entities, generally involves with a lot of other components. Say there's a server called JBoss server, so it has a lot of insecure deserialization vulnerability. So serialization is the process of storing the object data uh, storing the object data, and deserialization is reading the object data. So when an application is insecurely deserializing, that is reading the object data, it can contain some malicious code or a command or something. So if it executes that data, while reading that data, if it executes the command that is placed in there, so it generally has the insecure deserialization bug. So that's that. And A9, using components with known vulnerabilities. Uh, a while before, I gave you an example of x.abc.com. So if it uses a old, say, old PHP framework, you just found out an exploit, a publicly available exploit that can allow you to execute commands on the application. So that is pretty much the using components with known vulnerabilities. 810 categorization, it's something that I think we cannot find. It's something that a developer has to take care of. He has to log all the actions and events that are happening within the application. So suppose your web application is hacked and you don't know of it. So what's the point of having the application, right? So you can just log every time an action or event occurs. This way, you at least get to know what is happening in the application. That is insufficient logging and monitoring. These are the common bugs. We saw XSS, SQLi, IDORs, insecure direct object reference. RC expands as remote code execution, or it can also be called as command injection. XXC, XML external entities. CSRF is also a nice bug. It comes across security misconfiguration. I mean, it can be categorized as security misconfiguration. It is cross-site request forgery. When you are able to forge a victim to make an action. So that is CSRF. And business logic flaws, and we have a lot of business logic flaw is a nice bug. I mean, it generally say there's an application which uh, say if WhatsApp allows only 256 participants to be in a group, and if you are able to bypass that, if you are able to add 1,000 members into a group, into a WhatsApp group, that's generally a business logic flaw. So that can also be a security bug because it causes loads and performance issues. So it can be a business logic flaw and it can be easily reported. So this is what business logic flaw is. So these are some tools that can be useful. You can note it down. These are very useful tools. OWASP, AMAS, it's a subdomain finder tool. DNS dumpster, asset finder. These are used for finding the subdomains of an application. There's one more tool that was released a month back, I guess. It's called, it's a crowdsourced website called Project Discovery. It gives you all the subdomains that have been previously found out by other users. So like it's continuously updating. So you can use this to find out the subdomain of application, all the subdomain. Then Go Witness, Eyewitness, Aquatone. There's These are what we can say screenshot tool. So if you find a lot of subdomains, so if you are on HackerOne and you find out that say NVIDIA is having a bug bounty program and their scope is star.nvidia.com, that means NVIDIA wants all of its subdomain to be checked for vulnerabilities. That is, everything is in scope. So you cannot go. after you find it through say OWASP EMAS, you cannot go to each and every subdomain and find out what it looks like or what it has or what kind of application it is having. So in order to ease that process, you can use any of these tools for GoWitness, iWitness, or Aquaton. You just write all the subdomains in a text file, give that text file to these tools as an input. This will carry out the screenshot process in the background. What it will do is it will send the request to the URL. It will capture a screenshot of how the application looks like and it will store it. And after that, it will also generate a report and categorize which application is working fine and which is not through the response codes. You must be knowing response codes, right? When it's 200 okay or 404 not found. So it will categorize it itself. So if it's a 404 not found, it will keep those screenshots aside. And if it's a 200 okay, it will keep those screenshots aside. So you can categorize which applications are properly working and not. This way you can use these tools. For identify process, you have the Perf, GoBustard, DERPy. These are directory brute forcing tools. So the we see sometimes the application has default files, a WebINF folder, or generally there are default files in a web application. You must have seen robots.txt in each web application. It tells the web crawler to it assists the web crawler or restricts it crawling to sensitive locations. So you must have seen some rules like allow, disallow. So robots.txt is a default. I mean, it generally occurs in web application. So like that, only in Apache web servers you come across htaccess files, which determines all the rules of who can access the application and who cannot. So these kind of files can be found through these tools, and if it is found, it can be reported. Okay. Then we have Appleizer and Mass Retire.js, XRDB. That's for again generally identifying what kind of application is it. For exploit part, we have a lot of tools. I have just named a few here. It's XSS Strike for finding XSS. I don't remember who it was, I guess. Then SQL Map is a very great tool for finding SQL injection bug. So if you come across any URL that allows certain parameters, you can use SQL Map to find. Then Burpsuit is a traffic interception tool. It's a MITM proxy. What MITM is, man in the middle attack. So what it does is when you are using when you are using the internet, you are connected through your router and then your ISP and then the internet. So what Burpsuit does is you tell your browser, you configure your browser to route your all of your requests to Burpsuit. So Burpsuit acts as a proxy server. So all of your requests from your browser go to the Burpsuit first, and then to the router, and then to the internet. So this way you can see what is going to the website and what is coming back. So you can edit those requests and then send it. So if you type in google.com, so it will and if your intercept is on in Burpsuit, it will first get stopped in Burpsuit. You can change the parameters or change the user IDs as I mentioned earlier. So you can use Burpsuit for that. We'll see uh, sometime. Then Xforwardy, Corsi, CSRF generator, those are again some tools. Xforwardy is a host header injection tool. I've just mentioned it because I made it. So that's available on GitHub on my repositories. You can check it. So host header injection is one of the vulnerabilities that is reported in bug bounty programs. So you can check it. It's available in github.com/rootcast/xforwardy. It's a Python tool. Okay. Corsi is also used for coarse misconfiguration. Then CSRF generator you can use for generating CSRF POC. Okay. Okay. we'll look at some demos. Uh, we will see first how to configure a Burpsuit proxy so that you are able to identify the request. So this is your browser. You can add a proxy configuration extension. So what I've added here is a Switchy Omega proxy extension. It allows you to configure proxies. So once you start your Burpsuit, you can go to the proxy tab, then the options tab, then you can see here 127.0.0.1.80.80. So it's a proxy listening on your loopback address, that is 127.0.0.1, that is your own address, and port 8080. So you can just enable it. It's by default enabled. Then intercept is also by default enabled. You can just when it's running, you can go here, export a certificate, because you must be knowing that a lot of, I mean, every website nowadays uses an HTTPS connection. So what HTTPS does is it encrypts all the traffic that is going to and fro. So to decrypt that traffic, we need to have our own certificate imported into the browser that we are using. So we'll export a certificate, that is certificate in the format. We'll name the certificate something. So let's say I name it Burp 19. So the extension has to be .cert, standing for certificate. Save. Next, the certificate was successfully exported. Close. So we'll go to our browser now. We'll go in settings. We'll search for certificates. In security, it is here, manage certificates. Now we'll go to trusted root certificate authorities. We'll import it here. This is our recently created certificate. We'll open it. Next, next, finish. It will add prompt you this. We'll say yes. Import was successful. Okay. Now, uh, okay. So we'll open our proxy extension. It can be Foxy proxy. I'm using Switchy Omega. So you can configure your new. I'll delete this. I can recreate it. So this is by default how it looks like. We'll click here and say new profile. You'll name it Burpsuit or whatever you want. It is a proxy profile, so create. Then you'll tell what protocol it is using. So we don't have a HTTPS protocol for now. It's an HTTP proxy, because HTTPS requires a certificate. So we'll tell HTTP. Then we'll give the address that was there in the proxy settings. 7. Then the port. Apply changes. Give it a nice color because also it is orange. Apply changes. We'll now go to, so now it's selected to direct. That means if I visit google.com, nothing will be captured here. It will be blank, right? There's nothing here. But if I turn on the proxy, now we'll see in the intercept, it's asking whether to allow this request or not. So it's going through our proxy now. It's a get request, what the host is, how the connection is, cache control headers, all these headers. So if I forward this request, again forward it, lot of requests Google uses. So we can see it was loaded. If I had dropped that request, we'll try again. So close it again, google.com. We'll turn on the intercept. Drop. See, all the Google requests we are dropping. We'll see what happens now. See, it was an error. It was not able to reach Google. So this is how burp proxy works. So we'll see. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so this is what how burp works. We'll quickly see an XSS demo. I must have it here.
Sorry to
Okay, I don't
interrupt you,
have.
sir.
Hmm?
Sorry
Yeah,
to
yeah.
interrupt you, sir. But we only have 10 minutes remaining for this session. Uh,
Okay.
also, we
Okay,
have
we'll see. Yeah.
we have a question from Chaitanya. Uh, so please proceed accordingly. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll go to our. We'll see one vulnerability. So this is lab.cp or lab.com. This is something like me and my friends maintain. So CTZ Lab is like a portfolio or a placeholder for all our projects. So we have a CTF too. So if you are interested in playing CTFs, you can sign up here and you can play the CTF. It has a lot of challenges. Then yeah, so this is about the CTF. We have a lab where we have hosted all the labs till now. IDOR is not yet finished. So we'll see about host header injection. So this was specifically created for the tool that I mentioned earlier. It's X-Forwardy. So Chaitanya. Okay, Chaitanya was asking, I guess. Okay, so this is what I've developed. It's a tool in Python. Python is pretty much trending these days. So if you are interested in security, you can try to learn Python. You can develop your own tools. So this is what Xforward is. You can install it through git clone, pip install, and Python Xforward PI. You can give them. So we'll give this to the Xforward. I have it here, I guess. Yeah, okay. So Python Xforward. Okay, does not update us. Okay. Yeah, okay. So this is the tool. We can try it. So since we only have one URL to check for the vulnerability, we'll write Python X forwarding, then u and our URL. So let's see. Okay, it says no reflection of customer host data. Okay, it offended. Still no. I guess it patched. Index.php. Yeah. We'll intercept this request in Word. Once again. So we'll send it in repeater. What repeater in Verbsuit allows is it allows you to replay requests. So we'll change our X forwarded. We'll give a X forwarded host header abc.com. So we see abc.com is reflected here, and a script is using src attribute to include that test.min.js script. So what an attacker can do is he can poison this and make the application load another script, that is a malicious script from another domain. So this is pretty much about the host header injection. It can be used. The tool can be used. I guess I don't know why we are not able to see the reflection, but it works generally. So you can also use a u attribute and I attribute and give a file name which contains all the URLs, so it can check against all the files. Additionally, we have Verbsuit also. So it's a community edition, that is the freeware or the free version. So there's a pro version available as well, which allows you to scan for a website. So you can here we can see only crawling, but it can scan also in pro version. So it can give you all the vulnerabilities that are in there in a site. So you can try pro version as well for scanning. So these are the some tools that you can use. There are a lot of tools available in internet. You can try the tools. Okay, so that's it. These are the references. You can check. I'll send the PPT to Venkatesh. Thank you. Let's start with the Q&A session. We
Uh,
are having it.
if participants have any questions, they can ask in the chat. So I think the only question was, what can you explain about export routing? I think sir have explained it very well.
It was fast. Uh-huh. Any question, please, if we can have any.
Okay, I think we will not get any questions. Thank you, Tushar sir, for this very informative session.
Yeah.
And thank you all the participants for participating in the webinar. Request you to please fill the feedback form. I've mentioned the link in the chat section. Thank you
Mhm.
everyone, and I will be ending
Okay.
this session.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all, Venkatesh.
Thank you.
Bye.